Now, after they come out of the jugular foramen, the glossopharyngeal nerve will have the extracranial course. The extracranial course of the glossopharyngeal nerve is it will travel. So let us say this is my jugular foramen and the nerve has come down with two dilatations. Okay, and then it will go towards the structure called styloid process. So let us draw the styloid process. The styloid process, it's a bony part on the lower part of the lower part of the base of the skull. Now, once it has reached the styloid, it will go next to a structure called Stylo Pharyngeal. So let us draw the Stylo Pharyngeal. Now this is a muscle which arises from styloid process. Label this as Stylo Pharyngeal. The nerve travels close to this structure and lies medial to the styloid process and goes and supplies this muscle. After it has supplied the muscle, it further goes ahead and it will be hidden behind another muscle which is next to the tongue, that is hyoglossus. So let us say I will draw the tongue there. And this muscle goes from hyoid bone and reaches the tongue, so we call hyoglossus. It lies behind the hyoglossus and ultimately the nerve will end by supplying the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. Let us say this is my posterior 1/3 of the tongue. This is the posterior part of the tongue, that's the epiglottis. So it ends by supplying the structure, that is posterior 1/3 of the tongue, tonsils, part of the soft palate and circumvallate papillae. So there are papillae which are hidden in front of the sulcus terminalis. Let us say these are the circumvallate papillae which is present in front of the sulcus terminalis. So that's my sulcus terminalis. Okay, so this is the entire course of the glossopharyngeal nerve. It started from medulla oblongata, came to jugular foramen, came down near the styloid process, supplied the stylopharyngeus, lie deep to the hyoglossus and then end by supplying the posterior 1/3 of the tongue, circumvallate papillae, tonsillar region, part of the soft palate. Now while doing so, it gave multiple branches. So let us say we will take one by one the branches. So the first branch of the nerve within the cranial cavity is the lesser petrosal nerve. Now once it enters inside, say this is my petrous part of the temporal bone. Let us say this is my entire thing is petrous part of the temporal bone. And once the nerve enters into the petrous part of the temporal bone, next to the petrous part of the temporal bone, it will give a branch, that is the first branch, which will go to the middle ear. So I'll draw with a different color. Say it gives the first branch. This branch is the tympanic branch. Let us say number 1. Number 1, tympanic branch. As the name suggests, tympanic branch, tympanic cavity, middle ear cavity, tympanic membrane. So it has to go to the tympanic membrane. Once it supplies the middle ear, like this is the middle ear, and this is the tympanic membrane, it supplies the tympanic membrane by forming a plexus along with the other nerves inside the middle ear, which is called as tympanic plexus. It will supply the auditory tube. So let us say it supplies the auditory tube, that is also called as the eustachian tube. It supplies the tympanic membrane. It supplies the middle ear mucosa. After doing so, the nerve will come out from the roof. So I am drawing now again with black color. So this nerve is coming from middle ear, from the roof of the petrous part of the temporal bone, and go to the middle cranial cavity. It reaches a foramen which is oval in shape, called the foramen oval. So it passes next to the foramen oval and then passes into it. This nerve is called the lesser petrosal nerve. So I'll write down the second one, which is called as the lesser petrosal nerve. Now this is the nerve which will supply secretomotor parasympathetic fiber to the parotid gland. Now, how does it supply the parotid gland? So let us say now the nerve has come out through jugular foramen. Okay, again I will draw with the orange color. So let us say this nerve will come out below the middle cranial fossa, and it will relay into a ganglion called the otic ganglion. So I label this ganglion as otic ganglion. The otic ganglion is the one which will receive the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers from the glossopharyngeal nerve. Now, from this, the postganglionic parasympathetic fiber come out with the help of a nerve called auriculotemporal nerve. Let us say this nerve is called auriculotemporal nerve. Auriculotemporal nerve is a branch of mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. It's a branch of mandibular division of trigeminal nerve So it is taking the help of fifth cranial nerve. So let us say this nerve will relay the fiber, and then the postganglionic parasympathetic fibers are carried out via the auriculotemporal nerve to the parotid gland. So let us say it goes to the parotid gland. The parotid gland will receive the secretomotor fibers from the otic ganglion. So in previous lecture we have discussed the fibers which carries the preganglionic and postganglionic parasympathetic fibers, or the nerve which carries these fibers. In this case it is glossopharyngeal nerve. The functional component for them becomes general visceral efferent. So let us say the glossopharyngeal nerve first functional component is general visceral efferent. Okay, so this is my first component of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Let us go ahead. This was the first branch, the tympanic branch, which continued as lesser petrosal nerve, enter through foramen ovale. So that's a foramen ovale. Passes through the foramen ovale, reaches below the middle cranial fossa and relay at the otic ganglion. From there it will take the help of auriculotemporal nerve, which is a mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. It's a branch of mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve, which will reach the parotid gland. This component we call general visceral efferent component.